Been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Paul Krikorian. We have with us our Planning Director, Michael LeGrand. Welcome. We do have a few items that we will call special given the number of speaker cards we have. There are some items I believe we can run through the agenda that do not require any specials, just some directives, and we do have one guest, a guest who has stepped up to the plate and volunteered for the City of Los Angeles as a candidate for a commissioner. Roberto, for the record, can you read item 1?
Sure. Item 1, council members, is a communication from the mayor. It's relative to the appointment of Ms. Anna Hansen to the East LA APC.
Ms. Hansen, would you like to come out to the microphone and join us? Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for taking the time and giving to the city your expertise and care as a candidate to the East Area Planning Commission.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about yourself, your background, and the skill set that you would bring to the table as a potential commissioner?
I am a native Angelino, still live in my childhood home, and in the East area of Mount Washington. I have 18 years of experience as a trustee on several different funds, health and welfare, apprenticeship, pension, and I like to equate that experience to this commission in kind of the way it's set up. And that's it.
Great. In terms of policies and or impacts, given that day that you walk away and you look behind you and you see what you left behind in terms of your impact, what would you like to see as a commissioner in your influence on this city as a planning commissioner?
Well, I'd like to be able to walk away and say that the decisions that I made and helped make were good for the city of Los Angeles and for its residents, community people, its property owners and business owners.
And in terms of the planning discipline and planning principles, how comfortable are you with the engagement of that body of work?
I'm very comfortable. I'm excited, to start on this commission, and obviously I'll, need to brush up and do some homework, but I'm confident that I'll be able to catch up right away.
Well, I do want to take a moment to say thank you for your contribution, Ms. Hansen, and coming from the neighborhoods that I grew up in, I know there's different levels of sensitivities to issues that we need to address, and I appreciate that. Any comments or observations, Mr. Krikorian, Councilman?
Thank you for this privilege.
Great. With that, I'd like to move approval. Second, and that'll be the action of this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe you come to council next week, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, she'll be in council on Tuesday, August 9th.
Fantastic. Okay. So let's take a run through the agenda, and I'll call out the items that are special, given the speaker cards. So we have items 2 and 3, due to cards. On 4, we could instruct the planning department to work with the CAO to evaluate the proposed regional delegation work program with a report in 1 week, in as much as well, you know what, let's call this one special because we should have some discussion on that. Number 5, we have some cards on 5, but right here I see it's been designated to be continued to September 13. So we have Ryan Brooks and Ray Baker. Okay, so it's been continued. So we'll make sure you're aware of that, September 13th. Don't want you waiting all day for the item. Number 6. I think we can move on this one, Roberto, with a directive?
Sure, Councilman. I believe you will approve the building and safety recommendations to accept the grant funds.
That'll be second? Yes. Action on this committee. On 7, we'll call special due to cards. On 8, we can move on consent if there's no questions on 8. 9, we can move on consent if there are no questions on 9. 10 and 11 are special. And we do have the director here, and so we can move on the consent items, Councilmember. You have a second on 8 and 9? We're fine? Okay, so we'll move on those two. And Mr. LeGrand, any report you'd like to provide?
I'll be very brief, council member, since you have a large audience today. Michael LeGrand, Director of Planning. I just wanted to update you that we've made a milestone in the strategic plan for development reform. It's been released as of Thursday.
Which report?
The development reform report. And we're excited to be working on that. The consultants had finished up their 6-month process. We had many stakeholder issues, as well as neighborhood council input, business community, neighborhood groups, and the development industry. So we're excited to see it was really a roadmap and a strategic guide to help move the city forward, to really cut the red tape and roll out the red carpet to try and get businesses established in Los Angeles. And so we're excited to see that move forward. It's available on our webpage under www.planning.lacity.org. And so we'll be, make sure to get copies to your offices for your review and consideration. Since you did get a presentation from the consultants while it was a draft, I wanted to update you that it's now available. And it's really, again, like I said, a strategic guide to kind of move us through these different ideas and procedures, and many of those items will come before Plum in the next coming months and years. So we're excited to see that. On the other issues, we've been working with Metro. We were fortunate enough to be participating with Metro in meetings regarding funding not only the station lines they're building, but making sure that when those stations go into our communities, that they fit within the communities, and looking at the zoning in the context of the land use surrounding the quarter mile from those stations. So we've been working with Metro on trying to get funds to work on some transit-oriented development plans around various neighborhoods in Los Angeles. They have allotted $5 million countywide, and we'll be applying for major grants through that initiative through Metro's board, and hopefully we'll be successful in getting some funds to help us with our budget shortfall to be able to do some planning around those transit lines. And so we're excited to be working with them, and we appreciate their cooperation as we go forward. Other items, the department's been very busy. We're still working on the backlog of the number of development cases we have in our zoning administrator's office. We had just named last week Fernando Tovar to acting zoning administrator. Mr. Tovar has been with the department a number of years, and we're really excited to see him in this new role. And so that brings up our number of zoning administrators to 5. And so we're excited to kind of see applications up, as well as another decision maker to help reduce that backlog, get people employed in their jobs, as well as those people who are getting kitchen additions and different types of discretionary actions through the department process in a more effective and efficient manner. And that's all I have to report.
That's quite a bit. The advancement of the permits and the consolidation of the whole process of decision-making, bottom line, it'll be centralized, and an applicant won't have to go to so many windows and or desks
Correct.
to get comments and or approvals.
Correct. As you're aware, and you worked with us on this initiative, was to create a citywide case management office in the Development Services Center. So now at Figueroa Plaza, where applicants would go to file applications with the city, we have one department made up of 5 different agencies that can help guide a homeowner or an applicant through the application process all the way from completion to finish, and really provide that kind of ombudsman service, answer their technical questions, and provide assistance. So when you walk in, it's the City of Los Angeles, not the planning department, building department, engineering department. We look like we're one big family, and we're there to assist people. So it's really a good government at work.
Great. Congratulations. Losing 40% of your staff requires a different way of doing business and being able to leverage what resources we do have. And hopefully in the near future we will attain more support, increasing, for example, the community plan units. I understand there's only 3 in the community plan unit?
We currently have 15 staff members working in policy planning approximately.
But only 3 dedicated to community plan? Is that accurate?
No, we're using more of a team approach, so it's a little bit more than that. But I'd be
Okay.
happy to come back and kind of walk you through the staffing issues there.
That might come up in one of the discussions on one of the items, so.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. LeGrand. That being said, we can move to number 2, Roberto?
Yes, Councilman. Item 2 is a status report relative to the Nexus Study for the USC specific plan.
Okay, so we can hear from Mr. Roble, I believe. Mr. Faisal Roble.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Council Member. On the Nexus Study for the USC University Park specific plan update, I would like to say that on December 3rd, 2008, a motion was passed by the City Council directing the Planning Department to draft a specific plan for the proposed USC master plan for the development of 2030. In that, there are 3 sub-areas that are involved. 2 of the sub-areas are mainly within the university's campus or related to the campus, and 1 area is a bit outside the campus, which is going to experience most of the development. Today's presentation is an update, and I like to underline that word, the update, to provide community members with information on the status of the various components that this project will consist of, namely the Nexus Study, the Environmental Impact Report, a specific plan which we are drafting, development agreement, and site plan review for 3 core campus cases. The University of Southern California, located in South Los Angeles, is one of the most preeminent higher learning institutions in the country and indeed in the region. There has been issues of disarticulation between the needs of the university and that of the community at large, what's known usually as town-gown conflict. To arrest such a conflict, the City Planning Department, with the instruction of the Council, initiated the preparation of a specific plan seeking to establish the land use regulatory framework for the physical development that's proposed in the USC Master Plan. We intend to use the specific plan to unify the university's vision with that of the community at large. The development and preparation of the subject-specific plan and associated development agreement, or DA, environmental impact report for CEQA clearance, and the Nexus Study have all been vetted through a city-administered public process. And I would underscore here to say that the vetting process has been very extensive and engaging. I like to just give you a quick timeline and update of where each of these components that I mentioned are.
If I may ask, when you say extensive, can you quantify either in years or number of meetings? What does extensive mean to you?
Yes, thank you for the question. We started engaging the public as early as 2009, mid-2009. To date, we have logged about 18 to 19 public meetings, small meetings, significant stakeholders, community plan advisory board, which consists of several stakeholders within the community. So we have Unidad that we met several times. We have in our record is as many as 20 meetings with all the attendees and all the participants.
And for the record, Unidad is, you mentioned Unidad?
It's one of the, I think it's a long, but it's a United Congress for Neighborhood that includes Sage, Figueroa Corridor, Esperanza, some of the most active communities, and I would attest to say that some of those members are here today with us.
Okay.
And some of the faces that I have met with my staff are recognizable to me. So,
Thank you, sir.
I don't want to go through my written testimony, which is also affixed to the Nexus study that we released. But let me say, following the completion of the final environmental impact report on June 5th, 2011, the Department of City Planning has also released its Nexus study on July 7, 2011. This was icing on the cake in the sense that it was an uphill battle for us to release the two documents together, but nonetheless we did it, and that was a good result for us. The Nexus study covers an area that's much larger than the project site. Its boundaries are Washington Boulevard to the north, Grand Avenue to the east, Normandy Avenue to the west, and Vernon Avenue to the south. Since the adoption of the motion, the planning department has engaged, as I said, USC both on the Nexus study, on the draft of the specific plan, on the development agreement, so as to get the maximum input from the public. The Nexus study is a unique document in the sense that it analyzes issues within the larger community beyond or in addition to what the CEQA required environmental impact report analyzed. However, some of the findings overlap, and therefore some people might feel it's not adequate, but indeed it has gone outside the normal CEQA issues and analyzed some of those issues, and sometimes the findings are more or less the same. With the CEQA process, not only did we satisfy the Act's mandate, which is to circulate the draft EIR, but we extended the period to 60 days. We also held a workshop on CEQA in order to give maximum interaction with the public, which is rarely done, but in this case we chose to do that. A specific plan is being drafted. I would say, as for the benefit of the committee, that about 60% of the specific plan regulations are in place, and we are working to bring it to conclusion. With the development agreement, which is supposed to go hand in hand with a specific plan, is also in the works, and we intend to bring into conclusion that document. The last item, which is the site plan review for some major core campus projects, has also significantly advanced. This Friday would be the first public hearing in front of a public hearing officer on one of the first projects. And once that project is completed one way or another, then two other projects may ensue, and we will also appraise the council as to the dispensation and result of those projects. In short, we have a timeline, and I like to just quickly give you a quick review of what this timeline is in terms of where we are going. We intend to release the development agreement probably spring 2012.
Mr. Robert, before we go there, just for points of clarity in terms of process, you made reference to a public hearing to one of three sites that are being considered for development?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, the one of the projects that has been submitted as a site plan review case requires that a hearing officer conduct a minimum of one hearing in front of the public. It has been notified and noticed per code. I think the notices went about 2 weeks ago. The 500-foot radius requirement has been observed, and we went beyond that and reached out stakeholders in the event that somebody does not get the public hearing, and mailed special hearing notices to all those interested parties, and that public hearing will be held this Friday.
I guess my question more from a layperson's point of view, we are looking at an overall master plan. We're looking at a Nexus study. We have an environmental impact report that's being also analyzed. Simultaneously, you have three separate projects within that EIR that's being studied as well and reviewed for their development, correct?
Yes.
And so each one of those specific sites will have their own timelines, their own EIR impacts, their own assessments, their own sets of litigations. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
And that's within the context of the bigger EIR.
The bigger EIR addressed the entire project, and then each separate site plan review case would have sections of the EIR that specifically applies to each site plan review project and its application. So would also be the mitigation measures that pertain to that site plan. So without compromising on the overall integrity of the draft EIR and particularly the final EIR for the entire master plan, yes, each site plan would have its own mitigation that would be front-loaded and would be presented to the hearing officer, who would certify the final EIR, and then when the specific plan comes in front of another hearing officer and then City Planning Commission, the EIR would again be recertified.
So those who are concerned with participating in a constructive way will have to wear two different lenses, if you will, one for the specific projects and one for the greater EIR. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to put into context what's in front of us, so I appreciate that clarity.
Yes.
You can proceed.
So with the timeline, what is ahead of us, we like to release the development agreement sometime spring 2012. When is we do that, then we will hold a workshop sometime around May, June 2012 to bring all these components and documents so that the public will have a chance. One is we get the input and the interaction with the public in June. We will have a hearing officers hearing around July, August before we go to APC and CPC towards the end of summer 2012.
Okay. Now, that was the Reader's Digest version, right?
Yes.
We've been going through. All right, I appreciate your review. Councilor Kokori, any questions for Mr. Robles? Okay. So we'll move into the public comment period. Ms. Robles, just hang tight. We might be asking you to come back for questions.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your hard work and that of the team in the planning department.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's dive into this. We have a whole set of cards. And Charles Carroll, are you here? Carno, Charles Carno. Okay, I apologize.
My name is hard to pronounce, Carno, but I'm used to that.
Okay, well, all right.
So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'll start. Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Carno, and I'm a research analyst at Unite here, Local 11, and a USC alum and resident of South Los Angeles. I live at 2713 Severn Street. On behalf of the over 20,000 members we represent in Los Angeles and Orange County, including the hundreds of members we represent at USC, we'd urge you to further analyze the impact of the USC-specific plan on the wider Trojan family, which must include people who work hard for the university as well as the surrounding community. The Nexus Study states that all of the new additional jobs created by the project are consistent with the goals of various city and community plans, but doesn't indicate any of the negative impacts, including the social costs imposed by low-wage poverty jobs. USC is the largest private employer in Los Angeles County and should set the standard for how we do development. But this study doesn't even tell us what the wage scales will be for the jobs created by the master plan, or how the local community will have access to the jobs. A project labor agreement for the construction of the project hasn't been signed, nor is there a guarantee of good jobs at the 150-room hotel and convention space. This is an area devastated by the Great Recession, and good jobs are needed to revitalize our community. Furthermore, the jobs section overestimates the amount of jobs the project will create. The study says the hotel will create 221 new jobs because it uses a study based on employees per 1,000 square feet. The industry standard is to have one worker per every 2 hotel rooms. That would mean only 75 new jobs for these projects, meaning less revenue for the city. Accordingly, we believe that the Nexus study does not accurately describe the effects the USC specific plan will have on the surrounding community. We respectfully request that further analysis be applied to this report to understand the negative impacts of low-wage construction and employment jobs, as well as strategies for improving the partnership of USC with the values of the broader Trojan family, including our members and members of South Los Angeles community. Thank you, and we look forward to fighting on to make this a really great project.
Thank you, Mr. Carnell. And our next speaker is Tiffany Scalia. Tiffany. And then we'll have Brian League. If you don't mind, keep your eye on the clock so you'll know how much time you have.
Got it.
Thank you.
On April 30th of this past year, my friends and I saw the results of months of our hard work pay off as neighbors of all shapes, sizes, ages, colors, and backgrounds came together to share in the joy of music and the arts at the LA May Day Festival. One of the attendees, Maria Hernandez, was quoted in an ATVN article. At times, it feels as if the people on that campus have no idea what is happening a mile away from them. I can't believe some students wanted to put this together, and I applaud them for it. The way the university has acted towards and in the community in the past has earned it the reputation of yet another affluent institution who shows hardly any regard for the way their actions affect their neighbors. The redevelopment of the University Village specifically presents an enormous opportunity for USC to change that image. The UV should be a welcoming place for all of the residents of the West Adams neighborhood. It should be the fruit of a careful and thoughtful partnership, not a glaring symbol of more of the same exploitative behavior. This community does not need overpriced generic eateries and boutiques. This community needs affordable student housing to put an end to the practice of landlords evicting longtime residents in order to house students. USC currently ranks last of urban universities in the percentage of its students guaranteed housing, with only 20%. If the current plans are accepted, that amount will only increase to 29%, and we will still rank last. I know we need more housing. After 4 years of living both on and off campus, I have accrued $43,000 in debt. 90% of that was due to housing costs. I came here with Unite Here today to make sure the City of Los Angeles, as well as my alma mater, were equally aware that the number of concerned citizens is growing, and we're watching the university's plans. If USC and the City of LA do not act to support small family-owned businesses, we will not be silent.
Thank you very much. Brian Lee.
Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Brian League with the University of Southern California. I've been affiliated with the university for about 20 years, and the university's been a proud member of this community for over 130 years. I wanted to thank the planning department for guiding us through this preparation of this Nexus study. It was at times a complicated document, but we think that it stands on...
Mr. Lee, if you don't mind moving the microphone closer to you, we'll hear you much better.
I wanted to thank the planning department for guiding us through the preparation of the Nexus study. It was a complicated document. I believe it was a thorough document, and I believe some of the conclusions support what we've been saying all along, that we are a proud member of this community. A couple facts within the study is that it concludes the net economic benefit the university provides for the city is $11.8 million per year, or over the life of the project would be $250 million. The Nexus study proves out that with the university building out the student housing component of the master plan, that 900 units would revert back to the community. The Nexus study and the university, through its master plan, we're not asking for any public assistance. We're not asking to condemn any land. We have all the land we need for this. We're not asking for any clawbacks or tax assistance with this project. The university generates over a $4 billion annual economic impact on the community. That's documented in the Nexus study. We're the largest employer in the city of Los Angeles. We provide over $10 million of direct community benefits through public safety and our other programs per year for the surrounding community. We have over 20,000 employees from the city and the community. Our annual payroll is over $1 billion. All of this information is within the Nexus Study. We think it's a complete document, and we would like to have the committee accept it. A couple other things I wanted to add. Student housing is the biggest component of our master plan. We recognize there is a shortage with community student housing. We want to build affordable student housing. And the last thing I wanted to add is that we have been working with the labor, the trades, and the local unions towards a local hire agreement that would provide preference for local hires within a 5-mile radius of the university, and we want to continue to have those conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Maggie Faunos? Maggie, F-A-U-N-O-Z? Are you here? Okay, we'll move on. Robbie Hunter and Paulina Gonzalez. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Robbie Hunter, Los Angeles, Orange County Building Trades. We represent 140,000 construction workers here in Los Angeles and Orange County. 22,000 of them are apprentices. I think committee members know we work with Homeboy Industries, Youth Build, Maxine Waters Training Center. Our members are from the communities of Los Angeles. We've been meeting with USC, and we're looking at working on a local hire agreement. We plan to use a 5-mile radius around the campus, and we're looking to see that local community members go to work on these projects. We support the modernization and the extension of USC, and we plan to work in a partnership to make sure that LA County and city residents go to work here in apprenticeship. We have a long relationship with them. We did the Galen Center, and we do much of the construction at USC. And many of our members, they work hard in the building trades in the hope that they can send their children to a higher education. There's a lot of our members that have sent their children to USC, worked hard and sweated in the sun to get them to where they can be an engineer and architect. And working families of the building trades believe we're lucky to have institutions like USC in our community, and we support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Paulina Gonzalez? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Paulina Gonzalez. I'm the Executive Director of SAGE, Strategic Actions for a Just Economy, and we're a member of Unidad. I want to acknowledge our brothers and sisters from the building trades today. We support the creation of jobs, and for both construction and permanent jobs that they be union, but we're here to discuss our concerns with the Nexus Study. The Nexus Study was specifically meant to study the impacts of USC's specific plan on the surrounding neighborhoods, and was intended to understand those impacts in order to recommend mitigation measures. The Nexus Study was commissioned as a tool to go above and beyond CEQA. After a careful reading of the Nexus Study, I am here to say that we are deeply disappointed when we've compared the Nexus Study with the stated intentions behind its commissioning and with the failure to cover all the issues outlined in the initial scope of study. The scope of study named 3 things: a needs assessment regarding housing, employment, and economic development, as well as green space, transportation, and safety, establishing the nexus between the specific plan and impacts in the study area, and to provide recommendations for potential implementation tools for the South and Southeast Los Angeles community plans. In all of those areas, we found the Nexus Study to be have glaring omissions. The Nexus Study failed to even acknowledge studies done by Strategic Economics and also studies that were commissioned by the city, and it didn't take into account the increased housing needs as a result of TOD and the Expo line that are being constructed in the area. So we think the housing numbers are wrong. In regards to providing recommendations for the community plans, it didn't do that either. Lastly, and perhaps most disturbingly of all, in its conclusions, the Nexus Study ignores those needs identified in the study and limits its recommendations to those that were identified under CEQA in the draft EIR. This is in direct contradiction to the stated intentions of the study, and we are honestly appalled that after releasing the study over a year late, It fails to meet the basic requirements set forth by Plum and Council. Given the serious deficiencies, we recommend that the Nexus study be revised, that an independent firm be commissioned to oversee the study, and that community input be incorporated through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Jill Romaneski, I believe, and Lupe Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. My name is Jill Romelski. I am the Executive Director of St. Francis Center. We are a member of Unidad, and I'm also a resident in the Nexus Study area for 9 years. We are thoroughly disappointed and offended by the process that has finally produced this study, the lack of regard for timing, and the study's content. We call for the deep revision of the Nexus Study. We understand that such a revision will cause further delay in the approval process for USC's specific plan. But we wish to remind you that the community is not the cause of the slow pace to date. From the start, we have been forthright about our desire to partner with USC and with the city to help craft plans in the area that would allow both the university and the low-income neighborhoods, which have been negatively affected for a decade, to thrive. We have a number of requests for Plum, and where necessary of council. The three that relate solely to the Nexus study are reject, meet, and revise. Reject. Reject the Nexus study in its current form. Meet. Meet with concerned members of the public, including Unidad Coalition, in settings and formats where detailed, careful, point-by-point critique of such lengthy documents can be provided and offered. Revise. Revise the Nexus study and require the Planning Department to choose an unbiased consulting firm to revise the Nexus study, one that USC neither nominates, vets, advises on, nor selects. The fact that the Nexus study is more than 1 year overdue should not be taken out on the community it was designed to protect. We have been waiting, then asking, then clamoring for the release for months. The Nexus study seems designed to defend USC's final EIR from criticism. This is precisely the reason it must be thoroughly revised, with truly independent consultants, with community input and critique, and with integrity. This project is too important to simply go through the motions of checking off boxes as completed, and instead focus on those who the process has been designed to protect, the community.
Thank you, ma'am. Lupe Gonzalez, and then Monique Uriarte. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Lupe Gonzalez. I'm a Director of Health Programs at Esperanza Community Housing Corporation and also a member of this community for 36 years. I'm here on behalf of Nancy Halpern Ibrahim, our Executive Director, and I'm here to read a letter from her. My name is Nancy Halpern Ibrahim, and as you know, Esperanza has contributed greatly to the health and vitality of our community over the past 2 decades by creating healthy and quality housing for low-income families. Esperanza participates in this hearing today as a proud member of the community for more than 21 years as a member of the Unidad Coalition. The cover letter to the Nexus study states that development and preparation of the specific plan and the Associated Development Agreement Environmental Impact Report for CEQA and the Nexus study have all been vetted through a city-administered public process. We strongly disagree. The USC specific plan has not been released for review, even though the final EIR is up for approval later this week. The Planning Department did not seek an independent, unbiased consultants to carry out the Nexus study. Instead, they allowed USC to vet or even select the consultants. No other members of the public, and certainly no members of the low-income, heavily impacted communities surrounding USC, were allowed input into the selection process. The result is a Nexus study that has been tailored specifically to support USC's final EIR. The process has disrespected City Council, which required the study in order to inform the rest of the plan, development, and approval process. The process has also disrespected the public, particularly the members of this community, who have devoted extensive time and energy over the past years to participate in the planning process for our neighborhoods. This is our beloved community, and we will not be moved, nor are we willing to be victimized by our own successes in development field. As resources are finally being brought to this area to make it a safe, healthier, and more attractive place to live, we will be struggling for the kinds of development projects that benefit all without displacement. We demand from our city responsible stewardship and steadfast adherence in a fair planning process. Respectfully, Nancy Ibrahim.
Thank you, ma'am. Right at the 2-minute mark, too. Lizette Hernandez. Good afternoon.
Before Monique Uriarte?
Yes.
I want to be sure. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monique Uriarte. I'm live on Bonsayo en Estrella, very close to USC. And I want to share with you the same story that I was shared for a long time ago with an as a broken record. As a community member, I want to say probably we don't understand a lot of terminology that you use as a planner, as a Nexus, or all this strange terminology for us, but we feel and we understand the displacement in our community. It's not strange for us how see people cry because they don't have home for live, and it's very sad that our own city doesn't pay attention to this, and we feel very uncomfortable to come and share with you our necessities, because as a human rights, everybody has the right to have a home and with dignity, and it's very, and I'm sorry if I get emotional, no, but I'm a community health promoter, and I have the opportunity to door knocking with Healthy Homes Project, more than 1,700 houses around USC, and we see for the last decade how our families are not there anymore because USC students came and they are more profit. How to say they provide more ganancias? How to say in English? They provide more profit for the owners. We want to be sure that USC are more careful about create affordable housing for their own students.
Ms. Uriarte?
Yes.
You use the number 1,700?
100 houses around USC students. We are doing surveys in our community for the last 13 years.
But just want to be clear, you were able to connect with 1,700 houses, and you knocked on their doors,
Yes.
and you became aware that there were students at these homes that were once community family members? Is that what you're saying? Okay. I just want to be clear. Okay.
And we have proofs, we have a lot of surveys, and when we go back, no more families right there.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Okay. Lizette Hernandez?
Good afternoon. My name is Lizette Hernandez Moore, and I work with CD Tech, Community Development Technology Center, and we are an organizational member of Unidad. I also have lived or worked in the community for 25 years. I also would like to address the conclusion of the Nexus Study, which for us has been extremely disturbing. The cover letter for the Nexus Study takes a lot of pains to emphasize that it's neither a substitute nor the same as the EIR. Instead, the Nexus Study looks at a wider geographic area and is not restricted to CEQA-related impacts. And yet, the conclusion of the Nexus Study reads, as demonstrated in each of the preceding sections, no new environmental impacts would occur within the Nexus Study area that have not already been identified in the draft EIR. In addition, this Nexus Study does not contain any new analysis or mitigation measures for the proposed project that are required by CEQA. Rather, the analysis and conclusions regarding environmental impacts within the Nexus Study are the same as those identified in the draft EIR. All of the mitigation measures set forth for the proposed project that are included within the EIR are also listed below by environmental topic. So basically for us, we're not going to say how the EIR fails to address adequate mitigation, but what we are here to say is that obviously the Nexus Study did not meet the spirit or the original intention of what we were promised by the planning department, by people that are supposed to be representing South LA, and it's really an unfortunate thing. We would like for the city to basically do the job of doing South LA justice and making sure that you level the playing field. We have sat down with USC on many occasions, and instead of us being brought together closer, we're actually having a larger divide between us. And this Nexus Study is doing just that. We have clear impacts in both housing and a number of other non-environmental issues that should have been addressed here, and we ask that it be revised in the original spirit as it should.
Thank you very much. Sandra McNeil, and then David Bennett. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, council members. We've Sandra McNeil, Trust South LA. I have been active in the neighborhood and lived there 15 years. I work with an organization that's based in the neighborhood, and we're active members of the Unidad Coalition. We very much appreciate your action to have this Nexus study done. I have spent time analyzing, along with my colleagues, the housing portion of the Nexus study and find it woefully inadequate. We believe that it's principally faulty in that it does not take into account the historical decisions made by the university regarding housing policy and how those have played out in the neighborhood. It fails to draw the obvious and irrefutable causal connection between the challenges it clearly lays out facing community members around housing in the neighborhood, but also tying that and relating that to the university's decision year after year over the past decade not to house their students in adequate numbers. We also call into question some of the calculations about student housing supply. Some private student housing developments are counted into the university's numbers. As they state, there should be 900 units of family housing that's now held by serving students return to the market. We take, if you pull the private student housing calculations out of those numbers, we really question whether or not that will occur, and we might see an increase in demand for housing in the surrounding neighborhood by 255 units. We also are concerned about the reliance on the student housing occupancy rates for the analysis of the dynamics of housing in the neighborhood. So I've outlined our other concerns here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. David Bennett, and then we'll have Rosa Giron. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is David Bennett. I'm a student at USC, enrolled in the Master of Public Administration and Master of Planning programs. After hearing about some of the issues in the community, I felt compelled to get involved with the Unidad Coalition this summer, and I'm a resident in the Koreatown community. So I've been asked to read this letter to the Plum Committee on behalf of Campus and Community United. The letter reads, Dear LA City Council Plum Committee, I am a member of the USC Student Coalition Campus and Community United. Although most of our members are away for the summer, we have asked that these comments be read aloud today so that CCU could be here with our allies and neighbors in the Unidad Coalition. We urge the Plum Committee to require a thorough revision of the USC Nexus study by new and truly independent consultants not chosen or vetted by the university. And we urge that the revision focus especially closely on the need for USC to provide affordable housing to all of its students. USC's current plans for housing its students do not even meet the levels of demand revealed by the 2007 Enterprise Housing Study, which the university itself commissioned. And since that time, there has been a steady increase of international and out-of-state students, as noted in a recent Daily Trojan article, which has significantly increased the level of competition for neighborhood housing. Is it responsible for USC to enroll ever-increasing numbers of international students, yet not to house them? These students are largely ineligible for the grants and scholarships that assist some students in paying for their housing. And I should also note that USC does have the largest percentage of international students. As a result, they end up living in some of the lowest rent housing in the surrounding neighborhoods and competing most directly with low-income community residents. We're troubled that the Nexus study does not address this issue, nor does it address the need for USC to house not only its undergraduate students, but also its graduate students, who make up such a large proportion of the student body, about half, and who are forced to compete with low-cost housing with the surrounding community. Is that okay if I finish? It'll take about 20 seconds.
Can you just wind up with a final sentence?
Sure. Yeah, I can just read the end of it.
No, just one more sentence.
Sure. So we hope that USC can stop displacement in the surrounding community caused by competition between USC students and low-income community residents, and such an approach would make USC a genuinely responsible partner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And that I usually remind people we write very eloquent letters, but we got a 2-minute marker here, so sometimes we get caught up in the meat of the letter and we can't get to the punch. So just time yourselves if we're going to be reading a letter. That would help. Rosa Gideon.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Giron. I live in this country for 35 years, and I live in this community for 30 years. I am a member of everywhere, and I don't know. But I'm going to say about the Nexus Study. Nexus Study didn't study what the impact is happening in the community right now. The impact is discrimination. I can see in my community all this happen. You know, every building has a student housing, and when the community goes and wanna to go and rent for the any apartment, they didn't accept because only students. So I'm gonna read a little bit about the impact. The Nexus Study City in 2007 Enterprise study in regard to the issue of housing discrimination, but then goes on to discard the issue of landlord discrimination against non-students and relevant factors. No analysis of impact of student luxury units, of no student housing rent. The Nexus Study provides no analysis of the impact of student luxury unit, both existing and those either proposed or underway, on market rent or no student apartment. When common sense analysis will project that rising rent level in the sector of the market is likely to raise rent levels throughout the market, including rent and the building not occupied by students. And I came because not only my community is suffering this project, but my family. We've been displacement many years ago from the convention center. We live at Pico, but we suffer right now. I have a sister. My oldest sister is living in Vermont and 39, and she's depressed right now because of this. Now she's twice of discrimination for she don't feel, I don't feel be part of this community no more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Giron. Madam Attorney, and we have an unusual situation right now, and I'm going to ask for your patience. I'm going to hold this on the table for the moment. I have a council member who has to leave. He has 3 items on today's agenda, but I want to give him a moment to speak to an item that he is concerned with, and hopefully his deputies can stay and guide us on the other items. But I know there's one of priority that you wanted to express your point of view. So, Madam Attorney, can I hold this matter on the table, get his statement, and then go back to the item so his statement can be folded in when we do address that other item?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So, Councilmember, please join us. And I ask the audience on this item 2 to please bear with me and have patience. The councilmember has an emergency, but he feels compelled to speak to an item that's very important to him. Councilman Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize, but a young man fell to his death at Hyperion sewage plant, and I'm heading over there right now to be with the workers that experienced that loss. I greatly appreciate you letting me interrupt this particular issue so that I can go on the record on a couple of other issues. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Krikorian. I appreciate it both. This is, first of all, about the Howard Hughes project. And I want to read a quick statement into the record. It is critical that you modify the City Planning Commission's approval by removing the additional workforce housing requirement that the Commission imposed. I am a supporter, as you will know, of affordable housing, and this application includes a workforce housing component. Existing approvals require 25 of the 600 units to be reserved for workforce housing. If more than 600 units are built, 5% of those units would be reserved for workforce housing. However, the circumstances of this partnership do not allow for this particular action that the Commission took to happen. The Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association, in partnership with the Westchester Town Center BID, will instead receive the funding amount of $1.85 million to help finish the Sepulveda Corridor project. The community feels that this is our only opportunity for these improvements to Sepulveda to happen. I've been told that about 1/3 of the traffic going to and from LAX uses the Howard Hughes Parkway Sepulveda route through our community, making it one of the most important front doors to our city. I have a motion in my hand that asks that this committee delete item 3 from the City Planning Commission report and replace it with Exhibit B from the applicant's letter of July 22nd, a copy of which I have available. And I wanted to personally come here and say that because I sat in negotiations with Howard Hughes for a period of a couple of years. All community groups got involved in it. We worked out something that we felt would be a win-win for everyone, and therefore we would like you to move in that direction.
And that's item number 3 on the agenda.
That's correct. And if
Okay.
it's possible, Mr. Chair, just to comment on the next one, the Bundy Village one, if I could.
Items 10 and 11.
10 and 11. There's been lots of controversy and discussion about what this all means. My bottom line is I want to deny what the Citywide Planning Commission had approved, period. What I would prefer to see happen is that people get together and come up with a plan that would go through a public process, that would be vetted properly, that would dramatically decrease the traffic issues that have been so serious to all of us. We've been hit up on this project for a couple of years. The developer went into bankruptcy courts, and I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I know there's been discussions and differences of opinions. But if I had my druthers on that issue, we would deny it, and we would send them back to the Citywide Planning Commission to come up with a new set of plans that the community could weigh in before it even be discussed at the Citywide Planning.
So the directive, Madam Attorney, would be to deny the request.
When that item is called, you have that option to deny the appeal, and then we can, I can give you language at that time. if
Okay.
You're going with the councilman's direction
Okay.
regarding a modified project.
Great.
Right. So, okay, so now that we understand your position, sir, we will make sure that is on the table, and it'll be part of the discussion when we reach our conclusions.
And thank you very much, colleagues, for giving me this opportunity to break in. And again, community, I apologize. I'm off to what is a very serious human issue there.
Thank you,
Again,
Councilmember.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll return back to item number 2. We had just heard from Ms. Gideon, and I believe the next speaker was Beth Rodin, and then Gail Haberman. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Sorry, guys. Good afternoon, members of PLEM. My name is Beth Rodin. I'm a member of Esperanza Community Housing Corporation and work with small businesses located in Sub-Area 2 of USC's proposed specific plan. I am here today to comment on Section C of the Nexus Study as it relates to small businesses located within the Nexus Study area. The Nexus Study argues that the proposed commercial and retail development is consistent with and meets all of the goals outlined in the framework element of the general plan, the South and Southeast Los Angeles community plans, and the Exposition Park University Park redevelopment project area plan. While it is true that the proposed commercial and retail development is consistent with a number of the land use goals of these plans, and we do not disagree with the introduction of retail in the area generally, we have some serious concerns about the proposed development that should be addressed in the approval process and the development agreement for the proposed master plan. Exhibit K of the draft EIR is referenced in the current Nexus Study to make the case that there is adequate consumer demand to support the additional retail square footage in the 5-mile radius surrounding USC's proposed retail development. The study looks exclusively at the impacts on other large-scale shopping centers and does not analyze the impact on small mom-and-pop businesses in the close proximity to the development. We anticipate that without proper design measures to connect and integrate the new development to the existing commercial corridors, the proposed development will have disastrous effects on the existing small businesses that currently drive much of the local economy. It is important that the planning and development approvals ensure that the new development positively impact the existing commercial environments so as to preserve and enhance the existing fabric of the neighborhood. The community plans and the redevelopment project area plan set as aims to improve the function, design, I'll leave it at that point. But basically, we really encourage you guys to look at this to make sure that the Nexus study includes the impact on local small businesses and not just large regional centers.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Gil Haberman? And just keep your eye on the clock so you can pace yourself.
On behalf of LA County Department of Public Health, I thank you for the opportunity to comment on the USC Nexus study. In 2010, the Department of Public Health awarded a grant to the City of Los Angeles for $1,100,000 to develop transit-oriented development plans for Blue and Green Line stations in South LA. Our purpose in awarding the City of LA this grant is to help improve the health status of residents in South LA who have much higher rates of chronic disease and motor vehicle-related injuries and deaths by creating walkable, bikeable neighborhoods with access to parks and healthy food. Similarly, the USC Nexus study and the specific plan serve as important opportunities for improving public health. I'd like to comment on the alternative transportation and park space sections. South LA has the highest motor vehicle-related pedestrian injury hospitalization rate, on average twice the LA County rate, of all 8 county service planning areas. Within the USC study area alone, between 2003 and 2009, there were a total of 11,061 traffic-related collisions. For the sake of comparison, the city of Compton, with a population of 94,000, 10,000 more than in the USC study area, had 3,126 fewer accidents than in the USC study area. Given the high number of motor vehicle traffic injuries, we ask the committee to take these statistics into consideration and to determine the feasibility of including additional harm reduction measures such as bicycle facilities and pedestrian improvements in the project area. Most of the proposed pedestrian improvements mentioned in the Nexus study are at the entrance points to campus, but not on surrounding streets leading to the school. Our analysis of vehicle collisions in the study area shows that many of the intersections with the highest rates of collision are located 5 to 10 blocks away from campus. I have run out of time to talk about park space. If I can make one comment, the Nexus study acknowledges a shortage of 167 to 169 acres in this area and proposes only 10 acres of publicly accessible park space, and we encourage you to make that more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And you can submit your writing for the record so we can have it with us.
Absolutely, to you?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go get a better copy.
Thank you very much. Janine Pierce and Rosa Samaripa? I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Janine Pierce, and I am a senior organizer with Lane, and we are here as members of Unidad. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. Because the Nexus study is part of the larger public approval process for the USC specific plan, a process that is suddenly moving very quickly, with a hearing on USC's final EIR scheduled for this Friday, we feel it's imperative that we address some of the other aspects to this process. Specifically, we have the following 3 requests of Plum and Council. In the event that USC's final EIR is certified in the very near future, enabling them to start construction of the Cinematic Arts Building they are eager to build right away before their specific plan has been circulated or approved, we urge that the city We urge the city to contractually commit with community organizations to guarantee a full EIR recertification process with full public participation and guaranteeing that the public's full rights to mount a challenge to the recertification. Without such a guarantee of recertification process, USC must not be permitted to fast-track any other portions of its specific plan. This recertification process must be preceded by full, timely circulation of a revised Nexus study, or as circulation of the actual detailed USC-specific plan, a plan which at this point still remains a mystery to the public, even when we're asked to judge on the adequacy on that plan's EIR. We urge the city to commit to assuring that non-CEQA impacts identified in the revised Nexus study will be mitigated through measures in a robust, multifaceted development agreement, and that there be genuine inclusive community input to the development agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Rosa Samaripa, and then we'll have, I believe it's Tafari Bear. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Good afternoon, ma'am. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'll be translating for Rosa.
Okay.
So we'll probably need a little.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rosa Samarripa y soy miembro de SAGE.
Good afternoon, my name is Rosa Samaripa and I'm a member of SAGE.
Y estoy aquí aparte de la coalición de unidad y soy miembro por 20 años en la comunidad.
And I'm here as part of the Unidad Coalition, and I'm a resident of this community for the past 20 years.
El plan Nexus debería de ser analizado y amplio y profundo y proponer soluciones para la área impactada.
So the Nexus study should have analyzed broadly and deeply and have proposed solutions for the impacted area.
Pero no propone ninguna solución.
But it does not propose any solutions.
El plan Nexus fue prometido ser publicado más de hace un año, pero fue publicado solo hace 2 semanas.
And the Nexus study was also promised to be released more than a year ago, but it was only published 2 weeks ago.
Y no está en español. La comunidad necesita más tiempo para leer y analizar este estudio.
And it is also not published in Spanish, and our community needs more time to read and analyze this study.
Este estudio no refleja el estado y la necesidad de la comunidad. Gracias.
And this plan does not reflect the current state or the current needs of our community.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
With translation, less than 2 minutes. That's pretty good. Okay, so I have to find Bear. And then we have Anigu Aden. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Just checking the mic. My name is Tafari Bain, just for practice.
Okay.
And I'm speaking as a representative of Trust South LA, also as a member of the Unidad Coalition. We wish to inform you of our disappointment in the general process. At multiple points before the EIR was released, requests were made by the community and organizational stakeholders to see and review the Nexus study in order to inform the process and remain a part of the process repeatedly before the EIR was released, and repeatedly we were denied. The Nexus study assumes, so some of our, I'm speaking in support of a lot of the other points previously made, most of the points previously made, but the Nexus study itself assumes that student housing demand in the area will remain the same from 2009 to 2030, and then the study relies on these assessment rates, relies on assessment rates that were done in 2006 in terms of the amount of student demand in the areas surrounding the campus. 2007 LA Times article stated that the number of students in a half-mile radius of the campus had doubled over the previous 10 years. It seems that with the USC development plans clearly indicating to add more amenities for students, and their clear intention to increase student enrollment, that the student demand will not stay the same, particularly from 2006 rates, and particularly over 2009 and 2030, student demand can be expected to increase, but definitely won't stay the same. And so we hope that our Nexus study could be revised to really address and analyze student demand in a real state, based on current demand rates, and also moving forward some analysis that includes some assessment based on their increasing enrollment, which the current study doesn't do. I think that's my only point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. Our next speaker. I'm hesitant to pronounce it because I don't want to mispronounce it. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Gordeme. I am a 22-year resident of Roland Curtis Gardens, which is located 2 blocks from USC campus in the Nexus Study area. My family is one of the 42 families that the owner is trying to displace from our homes because he wants to rent to USC students instead of us. The Nexus Study mentions the situation on page B13. We are one of the properties in the area that was financed with the public money, but the owner is no longer required to keep it affordable. What I don't understand is the Nexus Study's conclusion on page B52 that the university approaches in the past and now about how to house their students is not related to the situation of me and my neighbors. Of course, it's related. The owner is kicking us out of our homes because he knows that he can get more rent from students than he can get from us. I work as a teacher's assistant at LAUSD, for LAUSD rather, at an early childhood education center located just 3 blocks from USC in the Nexus Study area. Because of the owner's treatment of my family and my neighbors, I have decided to move to Lincoln Heights next month. I will now be commuting between my home, my job, rather than going 3 blocks to my work. It seems to me that university's decisions have many impacts in our city and our neighborhood, and the city should be responsible for its citizens in examining those. Thank you.
Miss, how long have you lived in that particular unit?
22 years.
22 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carlos Zapata, Lizette Hernandez Moore, and then David Robinson. That will be our last speaker.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Zapata. I'm a member from USC for 7 years, and I live in the community for almost 40 years, 1974, Howard and 19th Street. I'm very proud living in my community, and I'm very proud working for USC, because in USC I have my established life, and I have a decent salary, I have good health, insurance, I have a good survival for my family. But the things that I see in the last 10 years, all the rents going very high for us, all the prices, wherever you go in markets, is very high. I would like to know from the owners to do something to help him, because we are poor families and we need your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Moore, Lizette Hernandez Moore? She left? She spoke? Okay. David Robinson?
Good afternoon, council members. I work for SAGE, and I'm also a member of the Unidad Coalition, and I'm not going to deliver any prepared remarks. I want to request that Planning Department clarify its answer to Councilman Reyes's question about the EIR process regarding these few buildings that have special site plan reviews. If I heard correctly, we were just told in that answer that there are these separate EIR processes, but on Friday, we've been told the entire EIR is being certified so that one of these buildings can move forward, and we are told to depend upon a recertification process that we have been advised by our lawyers has very little precedent and is far from certain. So we want to make sure that council actually act as a watchdog for the public, specifically around the EIR. But I also want to add that I find it personally insulting what we've seen here today in the presentation of the Nexus study. There was no detailed defense of it. There was no explanation of why it is a good study. What you heard was it's a good study and it should be approved. Instead, on the community side, where we have the least resources, where we are getting by on shoestring budgets, we have spent the past 2 weeks digging through this to try to see if it's a good study, conducting as much analysis as we could and finding glaring flaws. We get assertions that 900 beds, and we dispute that number, but even granting it, 900 beds will revert to the community when students are moved out of them and into USC housing. I'd like to ask, how is that going to happen, that those units revert to the community? By magic? the market's going to do that. There's actually a study that was available from 2009 that the city commissioned from Strategic Economics and IBI Group that challenges that very premise, that talks about USC's plan and transit-oriented development for the Expo line very likely increasing rental rates and property values in the area. And instead, we are just told the students will be moved out of the community areas and those units will revert to the community. So I want to urge the council not to just approve this, instead to do what we recommend. Reject it now, revise it with independent consultants, and get real analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, that concludes the public comment for this item. Have the staff come on up. Mr. Robert. When we had so it's been a year since, we've been waiting for a year for the Nexus study, is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. When we look at the results today and given the comments from the different stakeholders, we anticipate, given your delineation of events to come as we unfold the process, how do you recommend that we address the concerns raised by the stakeholders in the Nexus study? I think we need to figure out a way to fold in levels of information that has a reflection of what we see happening in this area so that we do not make decisions in a vacuum. Can you give us some insight and or recommendations? I have a gut feeling you probably knew what the answer was, the situation was going to be like today.
Yes, Faisal Roble again, planning staff. I do recognize that a project like this would have stakeholders on the one side and the developer on the other side, and that's why in my preface I said this is a project that had for many years the town-gown conflict where the planning department is proposed a specific plan would try to narrow that gap and bring the two sides as much as possible. SC's master plan, which we have been asking for many years as a department, is supposed to be addressing some of the potential growth that the university is looking in the horizon, the year 2030. They would be coming to planning department with several applications, and indeed the specific plan being the basis for sort of accommodating that future growth the university would be looking at. The current proposed project which the university forwarded, which the EIR to its best analyzed and also came up with mitigation and findings, seems to have been already circulated, so I will not comment on the EIR because I don't have enough information. However, one issue that I like to just address would be, without just getting into the details of some of the comments, which some are very legitimate and deserve our consideration, I would take into account all those comments, would like to sit down with my staff, go back to the Nexus study, highlight some of the issues that have been addressed as part of this comment today, and probably see if we can make the draft that we have today as much as whole as possible and bring it back to you in about 90 days if possible.
I have a couple of questions for you, but I do want to raise a question to the USC representatives that are here, if they don't mind coming to the microphone. It could be Mr. Lee or anybody else who's representing USC. But I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Robin, based on your answer and given the questions I have right now. Now, I understand that USC is a private entity. You have your rights as landowners. You have your entitlements as landowners. But I also know you have been a very strong advocate in trying to build bridges with the community. But given the responses and reactions you heard today, one, the assertion that the Nexus study was a year late. Whether it was a year late or not, I'd like to hear from you whether it was or if it wasn't late. And if it was late, can you give us some perspective on why it took so long, if that is the case? Second, given the levels of concerns and detail and the 2 weeks they were given to review the Nexus study, can you share with me your posture as to how we improve this dialogue and improve this environment? Because a good part of this process is about trust. It is about give and take, and it is about understanding the challenges as one community, regardless of whether you're the property owner or not. So if you can just give me some responses to that, I'd like to set for the record your position on these issues.
Sure, I'll try and answer all of your questions, but please let me know if I forget one, because that was quite a few.
I appreciate that.
By the way, I'm Christina Raspi. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate Development and Asset Management for the university. I'm responsible for the specific plan project and the master plan for the university.
How about the Nexus study?
And the Nexus study, yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, the Nexus study is the city document, but my department participated in it as well.
Okay.
The document was turned into the City Planning Department July 31st of 2010. Unfortunately, because of staff turnover, the document was significantly delayed, but the university was very responsive in providing comments, and I think the Planning Department was responsive in turning it around as well. But unfortunately, the document was delayed through a series of changing staff. The document was intended in accordance with the council motion to study the impacts of the specific plan and the project. It was not intended to be a needs study or a needs analysis. That is the purpose of community plan exercises. So it does not respond to what are the needs for housing in the area. It just responds to what impact the creation of 5,200 student beds in our specific plan, the impact that has on the housing in the area. So when I hear that it's not addressing the concerns of the community groups, that's probably true, but it is actually very responsive to the council motion. I'm not answering all of your questions. Please tell me what your other questions were.
In terms of building building bridges and creating a different environment, so you responded to the letter of the motion in terms of impact, a greater impact beyond the specific plan, which was the directive. But there were expectations created by the stakeholders, by the community groups, and you're now hearing the shortcomings of what was expected versus what was produced. Where do we go from here, from your perspective?
Well, I think there is a huge public process yet to come on this project. Because we haven't even begun the public approval process of this project, there's a lot of community outreach yet to be done. That being said, the university has had over 70 community meetings on this project, and largely in those meetings we've heard support for our project. There are definitely groups that do not support our project or would like our project to address other issues in the community. But I think that there is definitely room for a much more robust public process as we prepare for the hearings that are coming up on the project. The city has a lot of tools that it can use to address public concerns, from the development agreement to the hearings on the EIR. The Nexus study is a unique tool to this project. No other project in the city has created a Nexus study, so it is a unique animal, but I think the city has many tools that it uses on a regular basis to address community concerns, and that is community open houses and the public process surrounding the approvals that are being sought.
Okay. Councilman, any questions or observations?
I just want to make sure I fully understand this process. City has approved massive developments in the city without requiring a Nexus study.
Correct.
This is an unusual vehicle to be layered on top of the ordinary requirements of CEQA. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct.
So, in addition to all of the public input processes and the review processes that are involved in the environmental impact study, in addition to that, USC has had over 70 public meetings just for this Nexus report.
Correct. And we spent 4 years developing our master plan in response to concerns the community expressed when we moved forward with the Galen Center project. We heard a lot of concerns from some of the very groups that are here today about the university's lack of addressing the housing issue in the area. So we began a master plan process after the Galen Center approvals to understand what community concerns were and to develop a master plan that was responsive to that. During that process, there were over 100 community meetings. And that's why such a huge portion of our land, 33 acres of our project area now, is dedicated to the creation of neighborhoods serving retail and student housing. While I understand there's a concern that there's not enough student housing being created, we have to start somewhere. We have to start with these 5,200 student beds.
There was mention earlier about possibly going back and taking another look at some of these issues within the context of revising a Nexus study. Can you talk about how that would impact on the progress of the environmental impact report, and otherwise how it would impact the timing of the completion of this development?
Well, it would delay the process, certainly. We did spend the 4 years that I mentioned doing the master plan process. We've been invested in the specific plan process, I think, for 2.5 years at this point. So to delay it to further revise the Nexus study, which we all agree is a unique tool in this process, I think would have huge impacts on our plans. At this point in time, I think we're being told the hearings will begin in the spring of next year. So we're already looking at another 9 months where the specific plan will not be moving forward. If we spent time during that time period revising the Nexus study, which I'm really not even clear on what its part in this process is, given its unprecedented
Neither am I.
use. Yeah.
And maybe we could address that to staff, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Could
I do have the motion in front of me, and it was presented by Councilman Parks and myself back in December 3rd of 2008. And we had a very real concern and role for this. And from my point of view, it is a needs assessment study. From my point of view and that of Councilman Parks, as it was written, it's very clear in the language that we wanted to, and I'll go down the list, the Nexus study should analyze affordable housing, green space parking, car sharing opportunities, and infrastructure needs in the above-mentioned area as it relates to the impacts of the proposed new development in a specific plan area. The findings of Nexus will be utilized to mitigate potentially significant impacts of the new development occurring in the proposed University Park campus specific plan, and the development of the implementation programs to be incorporated in the updates of the adjacent South LA and Southeast LA community plans are currently underway. So there's another section. Nexus study is intended to provide a clear understanding of the needs of the greater area and help to implement planning tools that will address various items, including, it goes through the list, incentives for affordable housing, transportation commercial corridors, and a preferential parking district or parking overlay zone. So it's very clear why both Councilor Parks and I moved on this action back in December. And it is because of the pressures being built by the ripple effect, if you will, from the impacts of the specific plan. And I do appreciate and thank USC for responding to this request, to this directive, being that I believe 80% of the plan is in Councilman Parks District, or close to that. So again, my question is more about the will and environment that we want to create in the future as we continue building this up. And that's what I'm hoping we can improve upon, given the nature of today's input from the public hearing. Keeping this positive, I still think that there is room for more dialogue. And you cited various procedures within the planning process. One of my directives, Councilmember, today was to suggest that we do have a report back on this study in 3 months, but within those 3 months, instruct the planning department to work in revisiting the Nexus study in terms of its mitigations and recommendations. How can we refine additional recommendations and hopefully fold in the stakeholders in that process, given that the folks here were given 2 weeks to review it to date. But I know there's other questions you might have or observations.
I very much appreciate that concern, and I'm always interested in trying to encourage definitely more rather than less community input in any decision that we make. My only concern is whether that process will impede the entire CEQA process that they're already having to go through as well. If we can accommodate both of those things so that that proceeds without being delayed while the Nexus study goes back for further review and a report back, then I think that, there wouldn't be a concern about delay. But, the university has probably had difficulty for 130 years in figuring out how to balance the need for growth and expansion of the university that has been in that spot since 1880 with the needs of the surrounding community. I suspect in 1885 that was a problem. And so this is a great opportunity for us, for the university and for the surrounding community, through this master planning process, to hopefully finally take into account the conflict of needs of community and university, and do it in a balanced, sensible approach which benefits the community at the same time as it affords expansion opportunity for the university. So I think this is a real tremendous opportunity that shouldn't be missed. And I guess further conversation and addressing some of these concerns is certainly productive and helpful, so long as it's moving in a productive and helpful direction and not just delaying the completion of this long-awaited program. So that would be my concern.
Well, I don't see us doing this in a manner in which we drag this out any further than it has. I think because of the change in staff in the planning department and the cutbacks in staff and the change, I guess, in staff in USC's side or whatever the year delay was, it was a year. So moving forward, and I don't have any more questions for you. Do you have any more questions for the representative from USC? Okay, well, thank you very much. Mr. Robles would like to come on up. One of the priorities, I think, in a transparent process is the ability to bring in information that creates quality decisions that reflect facts that impact the range of stakeholders that are present today, if you will. Seeking a process that allows us to move forward efficiently without delaying any further than what the process dictates in the EIR process. Can we fold in the issues and concerns about the Nexus study within the report back periods that were already scheduled or we are scheduling, so that the folks that are here will have the opportunity and a genuine role in giving feedback to the Nexus study? Can we do that while continuing the EIR process, given the master plan schedule? And I still need some clarity on the EIRs for the 3 projects and how that works within the master plan EIR. I'm still a little gray there. I really want to understand that each particular site that's being considered, and I know they're under a time crunch because of the benefactors' expectations who donated towards those buildings, is crucial for USC. I would not want to be in a position where we're compromising the input because of those time frames, but those time frames are real. can you share with us in the clearest way possible, if we can fold in the responses from the stakeholders and the comments of today's public hearing?
Yes, just Faisal Roble again. A couple of things before I go to that. Number one, at any given time, the planning department has allocated as many as 4 staff on the USC project. Given our share, our resources at this point in time, this has been a major project for us, both from the applicant as well as from the stakeholders and the community at large. And definitely, as the council member articulated, we were very much aware of the historical significance of this project vis-a-vis the background under which it comes. So we were very conscious. When the motion was started, there was a common understanding on all parties to use the Nexus Study, and indeed that's the way we are willing to use the Nexus Study, not only to see how it's related to the project at hand, but also to see what aspect of the findings from the Nexus Study can be addressed in the ongoing community plan update and the community plan process.
Did you see it as a needs assessment? The way it was interpreted?
Those terminologies popped up in a couple of,
What popped out? I didn't understand.
The needs assessment was talked, but the need assessment, the way it was talked was never to put that responsibility on the shoulders of SC. If the Nexus Study identifies some needs that are within the larger context, then the planning department would try to take those needs and marry to the community plan policies. That was very much made clearer.
Okay, so I want to amplify that point, because I think that speaks to expectations. The needs assessment of the Nexus Study, from your point of view, was not to be on the shoulders of USC. What you're saying is that the needs assessments from this Nexus Study was to be addressed based on the different planning policies of the community plan within and around USC and within the South LA Community Plan.
Yes.
And that strategies from those planning tools would be part of the response to the needs that are being raised by the Nexus Study. Is that accurate?
Yes, and the areas we talked about primarily would be areas like housing. So if we find some results that we need to address in the community plan policies, such as increasing and encouraging affordable housing around transit stations, we will address those issues within the community plan update. And we intend to do that. As you are aware of, we are drafting several TOD plans within the proximity of USC and the Nexus Study areas, and we intend to exactly do that. And my staff is working on that.
Okay, so I'm hoping we can see the differentiation between expectations and products and responsibilities that the city needs to now address in the context of the specific plan of USC. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Please continue.
So with that, to the question of what can we do with the multitude of comments today that have been aired, I definitely see the weight of that and do very much put premium. I am more than willing to sit down with my staff, evaluate each and every comment, and bring back to you in the most efficient time a way to articulate and sort of try to put that into the larger Nexus. As you are aware of, some portions of the Nexus Study we have done in-house in the last hour to make sure that it comes in front of you in a timely fashion. I would like to take all those comments and see if I can put that in a more, some of them are procedural, I will report back to you, but some of them are content oriented, and we will evaluate and see what can go in and how we can report to you back.
So I'd like to get your reaction to the following instructions.
Yes.
And Councilman Krikorian, I'd like to just state the following instructions to see how you feel in terms of moving forward. To instruct the planning department to report back with a status update in 3 months prior to the release of the development agreement outline for the specific plan, and to continue its coordination with Council Districts 1, 8, and 9, and any other necessary city departments, and to also instruct the planning department to include in the status update in 3 months, the revisit of the Nexus Study mitigations, recommendations, and report back with any refined additional recommendations. Now, in those report backs, as you just stated, you're going to fold in the concerns that was put on record today.
Councilman, if I may, Michael LeGrand, Director of Planning. The only difficulty with that language that we just discussed is there's certain items that are brought up today that are outside the purview of what we see, the intent of the Nexus Study from the council motion, as well as the scope of work. And so to the extent that we would pull mitigation from the Nexus Study, it's very difficult because mitigation is kind of defined in 2 ways. There's CEQA mitigation from impacts on the project that we're going to completely mitigate before we bring it to the decision makers. Any impacts that can't be mitigated will be disclosed through the EIR process. The university's been working with us on that. Issues outside the university that are outside their control that they may contribute to, historically may have contributed to, or could be just societal issues in South Los Angeles, are brought up in the Nexus Study, and there may be ideas out of that Nexus Study that are unrelated to the university's implementation. It may be a city community plan update that will attack those on. It may be some type of affordable housing ordinance that would come forward through the council, but other types of remedies.
Mr. LeGrand, wouldn't it also be possible to delineate within the context of those constraints those issues that perhaps are not going to fall on the shoulders of USC, but fall on the shoulders of community plans and other planning tools that the planning department needs to identify? And couldn't we be in the position to identify those specific either policies, strategies that would be able to address that which is not undertaken by USC?
Correct. And I think to the extent the Nexus Study does actually currently do that, identify some areas where we as a city can look forward to some policies and programs to help solve some of those issues, or at least contribute to the solutions in those neighborhoods. One of the things that becomes confusing is we also have a development agreement before us, which gives us a lot more latitude to mitigate other issues in the community outside of CEQA. So in other words, we've had projects before this body before. We just saw affordable housing added to a project for the Hughes Center. We have streetscape plans added to projects. We have local hiring preferences. So things that we can attach to the project that are a little bit outside of what we normally attach that would come before this body also.
So what I'm looking for is that vehicle that allows us to distinguish what could be expected within the context of mitigation and CEQA for the USC master plan and everything that goes with that, including those 3 buildings, and then understand that area of influence that speaks to other potential solutions and or strategies that addresses that which is outside of the master plan. I'm asking, can we get that done so that the community interests and community stakeholders are being heard? And then we can demonstrate that we're listening, knowing that these expectations fall in these different areas of impact. Couldn't we go there?
Yes, and all along, since we have been engaging the public as well as the council offices with the Nexus Study, we always made sure that some of the findings from this Nexus Study could end up and assist us in drafting the development agreements in areas that it matches. Other findings could go into the community plan as a plan policies. So probably we will go back, assess and evaluate each and every comment and try to delineate where they belong, where they can be embedded and housed as we go into the process. So, yeah.
I think that would help us a lot in understanding the roadmap in front of us. And that way we can drive the energy so that we can get to solutions as opposed to clashing over points because of misinterpretation or misunderstanding. Anything else we should have on this?
I just want to clarify that process will not delay the EIR process. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
From my understanding, it will not. The EIR has been finalized and it's final, and when the EIR is final, it's not subject to any more circulation.
Okay.
So.
I think it's a sensible approach to try to, as fully as we can as a city, address the comments that were provided here and the comments that were provided in the 70-plus public meetings before today. I would expect that this process of reporting back in 90 days, Mr. Chair, would not mandate an additional round of public meetings or that sort of thing. We've had this input. It's now staff's responsibility to address the comments that were already provided. Is that the direction you're
in as much as we know that the stakeholders have access to the staff, that they are being recognized and addressed in either formal or informal conversations, or they can be submitted in writing. As long as access remains open, we will continue to use these venues as a way to engage the concerns and responsibilities of our roles as council members and as stakeholders in the community. So I again don't want to create more complexities. I want to get to conclusions and solutions, and I'm looking for your guidance in doing that.
We'll do that.
Okay?
Thank you.
So those are the directives for item number 2, and I will look forward to continue working with the stakeholders in the community and with the USC and their representatives as we move forward on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Roberto, we got 6, 7 more items, right? The fun is just beginning.
The next item, Councilman, is a report from the Planning Commission. It has to do with an amendment to an existing development agreement between Equity Office and the city. This will be the third amendment to that development agreement.
Just before we get started, I just want to thank the community folks that made the trip out here. Muchas gracias por estando aquí. Seguimos trabajando y ojalá no están desilusionados. Seguimos trabajando. Muchas gracias. I just said I look forward to working with them. Hopefully they're not disillusioned in the process. We look forward to working with them in the future. Mr. Roush.
Thank you, sir. Charlie Roush, Planning Department staff. What you have before you on item number 3, and this was the item that Councilmember Rosendahl previously addressed you on, is the third amendment to the Howard Hughes Center Development Agreement. Unlike previous amendments to this particular development, this one is, the development agreement itself is about to expire, and this continues the agreement for an additional 15-year period. Howard Hughes Center, there's a photo over there on the right, is basically at the bend of the 405 freeway in the Westchester area. It's a very large office development, which has been constructed over the past 25 years. 4 lots remain to be developed on the site with the current entitlement on it of approximately 500,000 square feet of office retail space and a hotel and or 600 residential units which are allowed on the site. The development agreement currently sets aside 25 of those 600 units, if they are developed, to be workforce housing. Because the development agreement was being opened up for an additional 15-year period, that also allowed us to negotiate for additional public benefits on the project, and in negotiating with the applicant, the Planning Department staff included, the applicant wanted to change through a traffic mitigation table, be able to change the 500,000 square feet of commercial space into an additional 600 residential units if they so desired, basically change the office or commercial for up to 600 units. We negotiated that they could set aside 5% of those units for workforce housing. Public hearing was held on that agreement. And in between, subsequent to the public hearing and presented to the Planning Commission, the developer also came in and volunteered an additional $1.85 million toward completing and maintaining the streetscape improvements along Sepulveda Boulevard, from basically through the Westchester community up to the airport. As Councilman Rosendahl pointed out, this is rather important because if you're a person driving up from the San Fernando Valley, most people take the exit through Howard Hughes Center up to Sepulveda and drive to the airport through that route instead of taking Century Boulevard. The Planning Commission in their action on the development agreement included that $1.85 million. However, they made a change to the affordable set-aside and basically went from the 5% of the additional 600 and changed that to 10% of all units, including the previously entitled 600 units to be workforce housings. So they basically went from 5% plus 25 up to 10% of everything. And that is the action that is before you for
And that's the commission's recommendation.
That is the commission's recommendation, yes, sir.
Okay, and then we have, given the council member's presentation, he deviates from that.
Yes, what he is requesting is you go back to the original 25 of the previous development agreement plus the 5% that was negotiated by the department staff.
Yeah, I was going to ask Ms. Whitney Blumenfeld from council member's office if she would mind stepping to the microphone, because in our cards they all seem to indicate support the project, and we might get you guys out to beat the freeway crush if we are all in the same place. But I want to make sure I hear everybody that has written a card. So I have a stack here that says support, and I have one that says from Cosette Vergari. And Cosette, I don't know where you stand with your support, but I'm sure what is it that you support, because you didn't mark down anything.
I am not in support of the change.
Okay, so we'll hold on to you. I'll make sure we give you your just due. So Councilman Blumenfeld, I already promoted you. Councilman Rosendaal's deputy. I'm going to get you in trouble, aren't I? Can you just one more time reiterate the council member's wishes?
Sure. When Howard Hughes came to us about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, they heard from a lot of community members that they wanted some flexibility in what Howard Hughes could put on the site. Howard Hughes came back to us, Equity Office, and came back to us and said, here are some proposed switch-outs, swaps that we can propose and have more flexibility with what's on site. Along with that comes this development agreement, and what the councilman wanted to see along with community members was this improvement to Sepulveda Boulevard. So that involves the $1.85 million. It also involves the set-aside that Planning Department talked about. However, we are asking that the council members here at this committee delete the condition that the Planning Commission put on this development agreement, and you have the motion before you that would do that, along with the Exhibit B. I can go into more detail if you would like, but I believe that...
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes.
Okay, so then I'd like to ask, thank you.
You're welcome.
You have any questions for her, Councilman? I'd like to ask Ms. Cosette Vergari, if you want to come to the microphone and give us your position, just to clarify, because it wasn't marked on the card.
And I don't believe I'm in opposition to what you have just heard. I'm in opposition to the modification raising the workforce from 5% to 10%.
Okay, so you are on the same page.
I'm on the same page with everybody else here.
Okay, so I'll read in the record, everyone that has signed and said support, Aaron Abches, John Rulin, Les Watt, Mason Cheyenne, Jack Davis, Rachel Ann Levy, Don Duckworthy, Thomas Flintoft, Karen Dawson, and Ms. Vergari. So we're all on the same page on this one? Does anybody feel compelled to speak? You're a very, very wise group of people. I think we are in agreement. I've spoken and I've addressed every public card, and I'm ready to move this action. can we move those actions, sir, given recommendations? So that'll be moved and seconded by Councilmember Krikorian, and that'll be the action of this committee. Thank you very much. You're all free to go. It's recess.
To clarify for the record, Councilman, you will instruct, or rather request the city attorney to prepare the development agreement, and you will adopt Councilmember Rosenthal's amendment as it relates to, I believe it was item 3 in the commission transmittal, to modify the workforce housing percentages, correct?
Unless Mr. Roche has anything else to add.
There is a mitigated negative declaration that should also be adopted.
Okay.
Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee. That takes number 3, and have a good day, folks. Next item, Roberto.
The next item, council members, is a report from the planning department. It's basically an analysis of the pros and cons to accept delegation for the regional housing needs assessment delegation process.
Okay, and please, staff, this is an, give your presentation.
Good afternoon, Naomi Guth with the Department of City Planning.
And Ken Bernstein, Principal City Planner, Department of City Planning.
I'm going to just start with some brief overview background notes. The Regional Housing Needs Assessment, commonly called RHNA, is the total number of housing units needed in the 6-county SCAG region in order to meet housing needs of the estimated growth over the next 8 years. Each jurisdiction within the SCAG region is given a share of this total RHNA, and each jurisdiction must then identify how they will facilitate the development of their RHNA allocation through the policies and programs in an updated housing element. SCAG will soon be given the RHNA for the SCAG region by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. The next step is to finalize the methodology for allocating those units to each jurisdiction. Before you today is the option for RHNA delegation. It's the opportunity for cities to form their own sub-region under SCAG and work together on an allocation methodology and allocation plan for their sub-region. SCAG provides the total RHNA number for the sub-region, and the sub-region then establishes a methodology and subsequently an allocation plan for its member cities. SCAG has to accept the allocation plan as long as it maintains a total RHNA for the sub-region and meets all requirements of state law. So, LA City, per the direction of council, informed SCAG of our interest in pursuing RHNA delegation and informing a sub-region with the city of San Fernando. If the City Council chooses to accept delegation, the City must enter into a delegation agreement with SCAG and the City of San Fernando by the end of August. So generally, a key concern in every RHNA cycle is that the City not carry the burden of meeting housing needs that really should be carried by other jurisdictions. It's important to note that at this stage of the RHNA process, it does not address the geographic distribution of units within the city. In short, it's generally desired that the distribution of housing units by income provide a mix of opportunities across the city and not perpetuate existing patterns of low-income neighborhoods and high-income neighborhoods. At this stage in the RHNA process, the geographic distribution of housing units within the city is not determined. This will be done as part of the process of updating the housing element, and within that effort, identifying sites to accommodate the housing units. So this is a process that's about the total RHNA number for the city, or allocation for the city.
And then I'd like to address what are the pros and cons of accepting delegation and lay out the options before the council. The primary advantage of accepting delegation is local control of the RHNA allocation for the city. If we formed a sub-region with the city of San Fernando, we would determine between the two cities the methodology for distributing the RHNA numbers between the two cities and determining the allocation dedicated to the 4 income categories of very low, low, moderate, and above moderate income housing. And then secondly, if there are disagreements among other jurisdictions in the SCAG region regarding the allocation plan for the balance of the region, Our subregion, us in San Fernando, would not be participating in that process, and we'd be protected from having additional housing need imposed upon us due to SCAG's need to reallocate the housing need throughout the region. So without delegation, it's possible that there could be challenges from other jurisdictions that would result in SCAG having to reallocate some number of housing units to cities, and SCAG would be reallocating in proportion to each city's share of the RENA. That is the primary advantage. However, there are several disadvantages to accepting delegation. First, the city may be confronted with arguments that by not participating in SCAG's regional process, we would not be participating in the determination and fair allocation of these housing needs across jurisdictions throughout the whole region. The city could be challenged, therefore, on the income distribution, including arguments to provide more lower income units or arguments to include more higher income units. Secondly, related, if there are such challenges, the city itself would have liability to cover those costs associated with resolving disagreements or any challenges to the city's action under the delegation agreement. If we didn't pursue delegation and just participated in SCAG's RENA process, it would be SCAG that is responsible for managing disagreements among the jurisdictions, as well as responding to any challenges or requests for changes to allocations among the various jurisdictions. It would be SCAG that would conduct the public process, public outreach, public hearing process, and the city would participate in this process and assert its own interests, and we are doing so currently, providing necessary data and information to SCAG, and we are providing that to them regardless. The third disadvantage is that the potential gains to the city through delegation and the potential risks without delegation are really quite minimal. As an example, in the last RENA cycle, there were 4,700 housing units that were reallocated region-wide in the six-county region, and Los Angeles represents about 1/6 of the region's housing need. So we did pursue delegation with the city of San Fernando in 2007. Had we not, there would have been approximately 800 additional housing units allocated to the city of Los Angeles. To give you a sense of scale, that is out of about 112,000, almost 113,000 units that were ultimately allocated to the city. So that is a difference of less than 1% to our overall RENA allocation. And the final drawback of accepting delegation is the cost to the city and the impact on the department's work program. And we detail this in the staff report, but just wanted to note that all costs for pursuing RENA delegation and handling these challenges would have to be borne by the city. SCAG has committed only $1,000 to jurisdictions that pursue delegation. That does not begin to cover the cost of the staff time necessary. We provide the estimate in the staff report of 212 staff hours from the department to pursue the multiple public hearings and outreach that is necessary. That is a minimal staff, kind of a baseline estimate. If there are significant challenges, that could be
Your
higher.
comments right now are in some form of written report to us? Is that in front of us, what you're just stating?
The staff estimate is in the written report we provided to the committee, and we broke that down by hours. Is that not end up in your
That is accurate. That is accurate.
Okay.
So all of this work would be carried out by the department's citywide division, and we have multiple other commitments that could be delayed, including the launch of our city transportation elements. So in conclusion, we were before you in June, and the committee directed us to look carefully at these options and report back to you with the pros and cons. We have, as was mentioned, filed a non-binding letter with SCAG indicating that we were potentially interested in pursuing delegation, but after further more detailed review, staff is recommending that the city not accept delegation. If we as staff believe this was a high priority and that would result in tangible planning outcomes that are positive for our city, we would certainly recommend this and recommend that we identify resources to pursue this. However, staff believes that the city can advocate for its fair share of our arena allocation as part of SCAG's process, and indeed you as council members are part of the SCAG Regional Council and can participate in that process. And if there are challenges in additional units that must be allocated, it's likely that the impacts would be minimal. So we are happy to take any questions. And actually, just in conclusion, we would note that no other city in the 6-county SCAG region has taken the option to pursue delegation, which is also an indication that other cities have come to a similar conclusion about the value of this type of allocation delegation process.
All right.
Happy to take any questions.
Any observations, Councilman?
I'm just curious, why San Fernando? Why not any of the other cities that border upon or are encompassed within Los Angeles?
That's a fair question. The city did enter into a delegation agreement with San Fernando in 2007. In part, it's just the geography of San Fernando, that it is a small city entirely surrounded by the city of Los Angeles. So the mechanics of creating a sub-region are fairly straightforward, working with a small city immediately adjacent and surrounded by the city of Los Angeles.
Yeah, but so are West Hollywood and Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, sort of. Just.
I had heard that some of those other cities might have been interested, but they, in fact, as they thought through it, they did not express an interest. I attend some of the meetings at SCAG, and I had let some of the staff members from those cities know, and they had chosen not to pursue it. We had a history with San Fernando. We thought it worked, so when we spoke to them again, they said, sure, we'll work with you on this.
Well, the cost issue was the biggest thing for me, Mr. Chair, so I think staff's recommendation is sensible.
Do we have anyone in staff with any institutional memory of working these issues in the past?
Could you?
Is anyone left that has institutional memory of this experience?
In terms of the RENA process and the delegation process, in fact, we have lost staff in the planning department. Jane Blumenfeld was a key staff person helping. And in the CLA's office, we've lost some folks that helped on this delegation issue, given the relationship between us and San Fernando. CLA
we have to recreate the wheel.
I'm sorry?
We're going to have to recreate the wheel in this process.
To some degree, yes.
Council members, Alan Bell, I just also wanted to to put this in context. I think that the RENA numbers, the purpose is just to enable cities to assist in preparing the housing element, and that our only requirement in using the RENA numbers is to demonstrate that we have the capacity to absorb those numbers through our zoning plans. And we have always been able to show that we have enough vacant parcels, enough zoning capacity to absorb that. So regardless of whatever number we think we will end up with, and I think any number that we would come up with would probably be within a single-digit percentage point of whatever SCAG would come up with. Based upon the history of our housing element, we have always been able to show that we have enough zoning capacity to absorb that allocation. So I think that it's the disadvantages far outweigh any potential advantages, and since we can always absorb this capacity, there's no reason to go through this headache.
I did have a conversation with the SCAG director this morning, executive director, and he did make comment to the strategic decision not to do this, and that they do have resources to cover this exercise, if you will, and address the needs if we do not go into this delegation relationship with San Fernando. But to me, it does beg the question. I'm beating a dead horse here, but when we had a discussion on this, you cited 3 individuals working in community plans. Did I misunderstand you?
Slightly, Councilman. We have 3 staff members in our citywide planning section of our policy planning division. So we have 3 individuals, Naomi being one of them, who handle citywide planning issues. We do have some additional staff overseeing the 7 community plans that are active in addition to those 3.
So what is your total numbers at 14?
Between citywide and the community plans, I think we have roughly between 15 and 20. I have to double check the total
15
number.
and 20, you got to know better than that.
Well,
That's 5 persons you're not sure of?
As someone who has been around a long time, when I first started working for the planning department, we had a citywide planning division that had approximately over 20 staff people.
Over 20?
Over 20 staff people, with a principal planner, multiple senior planners, and their staff people. We are now down to 3 staff. So the citywide division is now a small unit within a larger policy section. So just to put that into perspective.
Okay, and I'm saying this because we got to start figuring out how to bring in more capacity into the planning department, but that's a whole other issue that's not on the agenda. I'll leave it alone. So that being said, in speaking to the executive director of SCAG, I would concur that we. I was prepared to direct and instruct the CAO and planning department to come back to us with an analysis of why we couldn't do this, but the bottom line is the money's not there. They're offering what they are offering as SCAG, and perhaps we have to take it given our crunch in our work program. So we'll do that. So we'll follow your recommendation, and then we'll take that step.
So you will not pursue delegation? Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right. But I do want to get back to you about the staffing stuff and the mysterious 5, the 15 to 20. We got to work on that. All right. Thank you. Okay. Next item, Roberto.
Item 7, council members. It's a transmittal from the Planning Commission. It's a proposal for a zone change and also for a new specific plan, the Bunker Hill specific plan, and in addition, an amendment to the administrative code to create a Bunker Hill floor area payment trust fund.
Has staff on that item?
It's item 7, Council.
Item 7.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Nick Marisich with the Department of City Planning. Here today regarding 3 ordinances approved by the City Planning Commission on June 9th and forwarded to you for your consideration today. Includes the adoption of a specific plan, zone change, and amendment to the administrative code related to the upcoming expiration of the Bunker Hill redevelopment plan in the Central City Community Plan area. This is planning case number CPC 2011-653. I'm just going to give a brief background on the development of Bunker Hill and a quick overview of the proposed specific plan and related actions. Bunker Hill, as you see it today, is largely the result of a large-scale federal urban renewal project that began in the early 1950s. The plan involved a widespread acquisition, regrading, and consolidation of numerous small parcels. The Community Redevelopment Agency established the Bunker Hill Redevelopment Plan to facilitate the implementation of a master plan for development in the area. It's currently the oldest active redevelopment project area in the city of Los Angeles and is scheduled to expire on January 1st, 2012. A 1-year extension was approved to January 2013, but is pending other decisions about the future of CRA related to this year's state budget. Due to the upcoming expiration of the Bunker Hill redevelopment plan, the Department of City Planning worked with CRA staff and area stakeholders, including property owners, local institutions, and the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council, to develop a specific plan to guide future development in Bunker Hill. I just want to give special thanks to Council District 9 staff and the CRA Downtown Region staff who couldn't be here today, including Dennis Hance, Jay Verada, Len Betts, and Dave Riccatello for their help in the development of these ordinances. The proposed specific plan, zone change, and administrative code amendment continue the existing regulatory framework for new development to obtain floor area rights in Bunker Hill, and also include components that will help ensure that future development is compatible and promotes pedestrian orientation and accessibility throughout the district. Provisions for the allocations of floor area in Bunker Hill are similar to those for the transfers of floor area rights, or TFAR, that exist in other parts of downtown. But the allocations are self-contained within the Bunker Hill area, and that's due to the history of public ownership by the CRA over the years. Almost all of the properties in Bunker Hill were at one time publicly owned. The accompanying zone change proposes to amend the existing delimitations contained in the zoning of parcels in Bunker Hill to remove references to the CRA and replace them with references to the specific plan for the purposes of regulating floor area. A public hearing was held on May 3rd, and the Planning Commission recommended approval of these items at their meeting on June 9th. Since that time, staff has worked with area property owners to address some minor adjustments to the language of the specific plan, and we are responding today by introducing a revised draft of the specific plan that incorporates a few technical corrections. We've handed those in. I believe you have those updated copies. They have a few small technical changes. We ask that you include these changes in your action today, and I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
And just for the record, the Farmers Field, football stadium, convention center, proposal, is that impacted, or does that impact this in any way?
No, the two are completely separate. Bunker Hill is its own self-contained area redevelopment plan and is unassociated with the larger TFAR of the rest of downtown.
Okay, just want to make sure that was stated for the record. Any questions for, okay, so we'll move to public comment. Thank you, sir, and we'll call you back if you have any questions. We have Mark Phillips, John Whitaker, and Ann Wynn. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm John Whitaker. I'm going to go first. Land use real estate partner with DLA Piper in downtown Los Angeles. As most of you here know, I've been representing developers and investors in the downtown area for over 30 years. It's really my niche in my practice area. And I am here in full support of this specific plan, and because certainty is really important to the development community, and this makes an orderly transition from where we are today to continuing beyond when the CRA is no longer involved with the Bunker Hill area. This is only Bunker Hill, and it was unique in that Bunker Hill did not have a TFAR process. It does not contemplate transferring FAR from one property to another. It's a land banking allocation process, and we've continued this process. But my main reason for being here and being here this afternoon is to tell you, commissioners, and council members, and Mr. Bell, and on behalf of Mr. Legrand, what a fabulous job your staff has done on this. I've been of all the times I've been involved with the city in making transitions or doing ordinances, this was the most smooth cooperation between, as Nick said, the CRA originally, Nick and Connie and Patricia. Putting this together, and Ken Fong from the city attorney's office. It has gone very smoothly, and it will get done in a timely manner, and that's what we ask for from the development community, is it get done in a timely manner. I want to thank them very much.
That was a very welcome gesture, sir. Thank you very much.
It's very sincere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Phillips.
I'm Mark Phillips. I'm Vice President and Regional Counsel of Brookfield Properties. We own Bank of America Plaza up on Bunker Hill, and we're here in full support of this. I want to echo all of the comments of John, especially in regard to working with the Planning Department. They took extra time to understand some of the quirks and of individual properties and of Bunker Hill itself. There's a lot of odd leftover improvements up there that people need to understand as part of the development process and especially the design process.
Great.
And they have my complete thanks for their efforts in this.
Thank you, sir. Ann Wynn.
Hello, Ann Wynn with the Central City Association of Los Angeles. Keep this brief. We'd like to applaud as well the outreach efforts of the Planning Department. They have been very good partners in this exercise, and as a result, the proposed ordinances are very reasonable, thoughtful, and progressive. This is really great work. It will ensure that we have a smooth and fair process to allocate the future development rights in Bunker Hill, and also improve the urban design as downtown continues to grow in popularity and population. We have to make sure it's pedestrian-friendly, transit-oriented, and active. This is precisely what these ordinances are designed to do, and we are in strong support. One thing we would ask is for you to move this forward very quickly so the ordinances are in place before the CRA project area expires. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. That concludes public comment, and the recommended action is to request the city attorney to prepare the ordinance to establish the Bunker Hill specific plan and an ordinance to create the Bunker Hill Floor Area Payment Trust Fund. Number second.
And you may also additionally wish to approve the zone change.
As
And I believe that planning mentioned some technical amendments.
As well.
Yeah.
Anything else? Are we okay? Kudos to the planning staff and everyone involved in the CRA. Thank you very much. So that concludes item number 7. Next, Roberto.
The next 2 items, council members, are interrelated. It relates to that project in CD 11, the Bundy project. For item 10, we have 3 appeals as it relates to the track map for a proposed mixed-use project. Item 11 has 5 appeals, and that relates to a series of entitlements, general plan amendment, a CUP, a haul route, zone variance, a zoning administrator adjustment, and a site plan review.
CD 11 again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can we have staff for the record?
Good afternoon, council members. Jim Tokunaga with the City Planning Department, and what you have before you is an appeal of the City Planning Commission's approval or denial of an appeal of a Deputy Advisory Agency's action on approving a track map. You also have an appeal on the City Planning Commission's approval of a conditional use for major project, density bonus, site plan review, and a zoning administrator's adjustment. Also, there's a general plan amendment and a zone change that's before you. Appeals were filed on behalf of 5 appellants, basically objecting to the environmental impact report and its impact on traffic. The planning department, well, of course, we're here before you to just simply state that the City Planning Commission did approve this project. We did go before the City Planning Commission twice. In the end, the Planning Commission felt that the project, although quite large, sort of fit in with their goals in this area. There was a plan amendment from industrial to general commercial, but recognizing that this was next to the Expo line, the Planning Commission did feel that the mixed-use nature of the proposed project was a good fit for this neighborhood. And I understand, however, the council office does not support the project.
Right. Thank you, sir. Norm, let me ask you this question, because we have like 7, 8 cards.
Yes.
For public comment.
Yes.
I don't mind going through the cards because they took the time to be here and to wait. But these are all different points of view, or are we all on the same page, or do you know?
As far as people that have approached me today, Councilman Reyes, they're all in opposition to the project, as is the council office. And it is my understanding that they would seek, request your recommendation to grant the appeals, deny the project. And there is some language we have discussed with you.
So I'm trying to help everyone here that's been waiting. I know you probably want to go home, or do you really want to speak? It's up to you. But my understanding is that the request from the council office to deny the project and grant the appeals.
That's correct.
And the council member, if
stated
you're in
so.
agreement with that, I can ask those who fill out cards, if you still feel compelled to speak, you're more than welcome to, but that would be the nature of the discussion at the moment, so.
If it's possible, if your counsel could state what she has recommended, perhaps it could be helpful for everyone to hear that.
Terry Kaufman, Macias City Attorney's Office. This is for item 10 and for item 11. And if I understand where I think this body wants to go, there are a couple of items that are before you. The first one is the applicant's request to receive and file the matter and remand it back, and then the appeals are separate. So if you're inclined to grant the appeals, you can, at your discretion, number 1, deny the applicant's request to receive and file the matter and formally and send it formally back to CPC. So it's denying the request to formally remand it back as well. Grant the appeals. This would be for the map filed by Brentwood Community Council, WESA, WSSM, and Kilroy, and thereby deny the tentative track map because this committee cannot make the findings of approval for the project as proposed. And then number 3, if the applicant prepares and submits a modified project, this committee can recommend that the applicant meet with the community and then go back to City Planning Commission. but it's not a formal remand, so it would be up to the planning department whether they would accept a modified application or whether they would request a new application.
If the planning department is in agreement with that would be the action of this committee if it meets the objectives of the council and all involved.
Do you want to state that the proposal also applies to the second item?
Yeah, that was just, I'm not done. That's for item 10.
Yeah, items 10 and 11, the
And
same.
item 11, it would be the same, deny the applicant's request to receive and file the matter, and deny the applicant's request to formally remand the matter back to CPC. Grant the appeals filed by Kilroy, Brentwood Community Council, Westwood Homeowners Association, West Sawtell Homeowners Association, and Westwood South of Santa Monica Boulevard Homeowners Association, and thereby deny the general plan amendment, zone change, conditional use permits, haul route, zone variance, zoning administrator adjustment, and site plan review, because, again, the committee finds that it cannot make the findings of approval for the project as proposed. And then, if the applicant prepares and submits a modified project, recommend the applicant meet with the community, and then the applicant can go back to CPC if it files another project. And because you would be granting appeals and recommending denial of a project, you wouldn't take action on the environmental.
Okay, so that covers the spectrum of issues, and I believe I covered the spectrum of speakers that are here? Yes? Okay, so I'll read the names into the record, and that'll be the action to be considered by this committee. And the folks that are here, and you can get a copy of this recording to prove that you were here, is David Holtzman, Sharon Cummins, Peter Brown, Liz Magala, yes, Arturo Reyes, Zoran J. Segina, and Eric Greason, okay, and Robbie Hunter, of course. Okay, so we're all here and we're all in agreement, so we can move forward on this action. Would that be accurate, Councilmember?
And we'd just like to say thank everyone for their participation. We're hopeful that the applicant will come back with a downsized revised plan as he's promised, and that the planning department will be able to work with them to do so.
Okay, Norm, great. All right. Thank you very much. That concludes that item with that action. Anybody else here for public comment? Okay. No one else here for public comment? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.